Looks like we're live. I'm testing this out because last week StreamYard was acting a fool. I don't know what it was doing. I tried to do a podcast that I've been planning for a couple of weeks with a friend of mine, and it wasn't doing what I needed to do. So we're going to test it out. This is me kind of testing out to see what's going on with it. All right. For those that don't know, my name is Brian. My wife and I own a marketing agency called I Sell Words. Um, we help small businesses figure out, what their sticking points are and how to navigate around them. And as a result, we have a service called the Unstuck Sessions, which is a series of meetings to help you determine what your sticking points are, and figure out a plan to get around them. And so that's what today's episode's going to be about. I'm still here to take questions and stuff. I really want to tilt it and say today I really want to take sticking points. And as I get into it, I'll kind of explain exactly what a sticking point is and what the nature of it is, and then give you probably a 30,000 foot view overview of how to navigate around a sticking point with your business. So that's what I have on today's episode. I think I'm going to skip the intro and just jump right into the live stream. So, what is a sticking point? A sticking point is a point of friction in your business that you can't move past. It's basically inhibiting your growth. It's keeping you from moving from A to B. And it can come up in many different forms. Sometimes sticking points are logistics, where you just don't have enough supplies, materials. You're running into expenses that you weren't expecting, and you have to navigate around those. Sometimes those sticking points are related to the messaging and marketing of your product or services. Sometimes the sticking points are just internal mindset things. And so is really kind of a slippery topic to nail down for most business owners and entrepreneurs. But it's really important to actually sit down and kind of figure out, okay, where am I stuck? What am I hung up on? And how do I navigate around it? Um, Precisely with my issue, and I'll talk about my sticking point, and then um, you know, we'll jump into an example. So when we were doing, we had to come up with an idea with ISL words that was allow us to scale. And one of the biggest problems was there is two of us in the agency right now. And unfortunately, that it's hard to scale yourself. And so we had to come up with an idea on how do we serve the most clients? How do you reach the most people um, without finding a cloning facility to clone ourselves? And we had to come up with something that made sense for both of us to do, something that we both felt comfortable with doing. And that's where the Unstuck Sessions came from. I really wanted to take the business because it was really heavily leaning on done for you kind of services. And when I'm talking about done for you, I'm talking about I've designed websites, I've built YouTube channels, shot videos. There's 1,000 different things that I have a capacity to do. And my creative mind likes to try new things. And if I don't know how to do it, I can learn how to do it. And that's kind of what my mentality was rolling in there and really focusing on being Swiss Army knife for business owners. The problem is with that, and that reason why I created a sticking point was, like I said, you can't duplicate yourself. And so I was doing a lot of done for you kind of services. And, one of the sticking points was not asking for enough money up front to scale. I was just looking to keep the business doors open. And the other side was being able to go out and form those partnerships with other people in different fields of marketing that have capacities that I don't. And so, and having the capital to hire them. And it just created kind of an insurmountable sticking point. And so I had to figure out something else. Plus, I was getting a little bit burnt out on doing everybody else's marketing for them. Um, Whereas the part that I love and the part I come from is a consulting background. Everything in my background is coaching people and teaching them how to apply concepts as opposed to doing them myself. And so there's a mix between applying the concept and giving guidance versus, okay, here's the concept and now I'm gonna do it for you and execute it for you. And so my background was more of a consulting piece of it. So we came up with Unstuck Sessions to address that piece of it, to allow us to get back into the strategy and consulting side of business as opposed to the complete done for you services. We still have our done for you clients and we love our done for you clients, but this allows us to go back into the consulting role, which we're more comfortable with. So when we talk about sticking points, as I said, there are points of friction within your business, and it can be at any point in your business. It can be at your implementation initially, where you're just planning on launching a business. It can be down the road where you are, neck deep in day to day, and you're trying to figure out how to move to the next level. And so I'll kind of give you an example of what I would perceive as a sticking point and what the service of the Unstuck Sessions allows us to do. So let's say that you're working on your business, right? You make a decent amount, but you need to grow. Maybe you need to get a bigger facility. Maybe you need to hire more people so that you can step out of the day-to-day kind of hand-to-hand combat role of running a business on a day-to-day basis. And so you reach that point where you're like, okay, I'm not making enough money. And that's a sticking point. Pricing is a sticking point. And that's one of the first things we take a look at. The reason why you're coming up short or why you're not making the kind of money that you want to is you always got to go back first and look at, am I charging enough for this service? And sometimes as a business owner, you have a difficult time crossing over from being a business owner to actually, or being a consumer to actually running your own business. Because a lot of times you end up approaching things in the business world from a consumer frame. And you start evaluating pricing, for your services or products based on what you think a consumer would value it at. And yeah, it's important to make sure that, the value people are getting is exceeded by, the price point is exceeded by the value they're getting. I'm not saying that, but more times than not, I run into business owners that vastly undercharge for what their services are. And there's a number of factors why they undercharge. A lot of times comes down to kind of a keeping up with the Joneses. They sat down and they saw what their competitors were charging and figured that's a nice point to wedge myself into. And so they don't opt for premium pricing. And what that does is it locks them into competition with everybody else. And unfortunately, when that happens, when they're completely locked in to competition with everybody else, um, it puts you in the widest possible lane where all the traffic is. If you're charging the same amount as everybody else in your lane, then you're competing on price. And unfortunately, when you're competing on price, the idea of quality and delivery and all the other stuff, it kind of goes out the window, because when you are attracting clients that are evaluating solely based on price as opposed to any other factor, that's what they value. They value the cheapest service. They don't care that your service is a higher quality or you have more experience or you offer more bells and whistles with it. They are strictly really looking hard at how much does this thing cost me? And they're not really putting any forethought into, am I paying for it to last longer? Am I paying for the added comfort that it gives or any of the other stuff? And you're in that big lane full of all these other businesses that are similarly priced. And that's what you're competing on. You're competing on that, and you're competing on salesmanship. Salesmanship is important, but when you have 1,000 different people offering the exact same thing, it gets hard. Your sales message has a smaller runway to take effect, if that makes sense. So you've put yourself in that lane where everybody is. Whereas if you do the premium model, where you charge more than the competition and you can offer a little bit more, you are looking for the quality shoppers, the people that want to pay up for a higher quality product or service. And that's a smaller lane. There's fewer of those people out there. But once you tap into that segment, It's really good. Um, where your messaging doesn't have to be perfect. Your salesmanship doesn't have to be completely and totally flawless. You're given a little bit more grace because you're offering a higher quality product. Like I said, your pricing determines where your positioning is, and that's not what the focus of this is. But I want to explain to you how this is a sticking point for a lot of businesses. So you want to expand, you don't have enough, you're not bringing in enough, and so you're looking at, okay, I need to launch a new product, I need to launch a new service, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times we ignore the most basic thing. How about we charge more for our average service? Raise your price. That gives you a little bit more money to have a little bit more wiggle room so that you can expand, so that you can buy buy the new storefront, so that you can update your equipment, so that you can hire more people. And so a lot of times price is the first sticking point that a lot of business owners run into. And again, it goes into the mindset, it goes into the frame of it. Are you viewing your business through the eye of a business owner, or are you viewing it through the eye of a consumer? I have a business owner, looks like, okay, I have to pay. I got insurance I got to pay. I got equipment fees. I got equipment I got to replace. I got taxes. I got payroll taxes. I got to make sure I have enough capacity to pay. Rent, facilities, gas, a lot of things that make the business run on a day-to-day basis. That price needs to be folded into what your price is for your clients. And a lot of business owners are super hesitant to do it. And all that means is improving the quality of the offering you're presenting to people. Um, and a lot of times that's enough to separate you. A lot of times people optimize if they're paying more for a service, that they end up being a little bit happier with the service. But if they feel like they gotten the service on a bargain or a discount, they're going to constantly be seeking out flaws in it. So now we've determined that your price, and this is the example, you determine that your price is your sticking point. Okay. So we sit down and say, okay, do I feel comfortable asking more for my product or service? Now we're heading into a sticking point that most people aren't aware of, or is not as obvious to people. Um, so sticking point is your price. Okay. Do you feel comfortable asking for more? Be honest. Look at your product or service right now. I want you to look at your product or service right now. Do you feel comfortable asking for more? The rule of thumb is, if you could double your prices and lose less than half your customers, why haven't you doubled your prices yet? A lot of times, and sometimes some industries are going to dictate how much you can charge, what the upward limit of your pricing is. And so I'm not oblivious to that. And there's going to be individual use cases where, your industry heavily informs how much you can ask. Uh, of a client. But there are other cases where you are simply undervaluing what your product or service does and how it improves people's lives. And you're viewing it through that consumer frame. So sometimes the sticking point isn't, oh, well, I'm not charging enough. It's, oh, I don't personally value my business enough to ask for the right compensation for my time. I don't value my services enough. I don't value my experience enough. And so sometimes sticking point isn't just, I'm not charging enough. It's, how do I feel about my business offering? And that's another sticking point. That's a mindset kind of sticking point. And that's something we can absolutely talk about and discuss in an Unstuck meeting. But for you personally, you're not making enough because you don't value the business or the product or service that's enough. You're not valuing your time enough. I've seen business owners, when you break all the costs down of what they're charging, they're paying themselves less than minimum wage for their time and hours. It feels like they're making a living, but you're really not. When you remove all the other things you got to pay for, their time, their direct time for their service is less than minimum wage. And it's hard to get them to understand, like, okay, this is what your bottleneck is. It's not that you're not making enough, or that your business model isn't profitable, or whether your business model isn't profitable because you're not charging enough. But it's not that your business model is a failure. It's you're simply not asking the right amount of value, in in trade for the time and effort that you put forth on this product or service. So sometimes the sticking point is an internal monster. And that's really hard for some business owners to square themselves with, where they don't value themselves enough to ask for the money that they deserve from the effort that they're putting out there. Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough break, but it's a simple fix. It's stealing your nerves and saying, this is how much this thing needs to cost for this to be viable, and sticking to your price point. You don't want people that will talk you off your price point or negotiate you down or try to haggle you down. You don't want people that are shopping you. You need the ability to say no. When you get the ability to turn away work because it requires too much of you and it doesn't pay enough, that's very kind of a freeing experience. Um, yeah, it sucks in the short term because you're like, oh, that's money I could have had. But if you sell yourself out for cheap, you can never raise your price point, because that ends up determining what your price point is. I've seen in applications with people I've worked with, kind of coached informally. You know, somebody offered an amount for their services that they were kind of dumbfounded about how much these people were willing to pay for an hour of her time. Yeah, that's your new price point. What those people offered you is your new price point for your own clients, because they're telling you, this is how much we value what you know, and you're applying this. You need to go out and make that. This is how much I need. This is a baseline of how much I need to make an hour. One of the things that working the 9 to 5 does is it puts you in a mind frame where you're kind of the pay scale you're looking at is, well, I get $20 an hour, I get 25, I get 35, I get $75 an hour, and you think that that's the top, that you think that's the limit, the cap on what you can ask for as a business owner. You know, where in reality you could be asking for 150, 250, $350 an hour for your knowledge and expertise. Um, because that's what, if the company didn't have the option of paying an employee for it, they would have to hire a consultant at that rate to do the same thing. And so you undervalue how much you should charge, because you're stepping into it from the employee frame and looking at it like, well, if I could just make $50 an hour for this, then that's good enough. Well, once you subtract insurance and gas and all kinds of other things, maybe you have to rent out a space, or when you subtract all those other things, your $50 an hour ends up dropping down to $10 an hour. And so now you're working for $10 an hour. That's one of the things that, when you're stepping from the employee world into the business owner world, you got to feel comfortable raising your prices. That is a sticking point. It's not that you're not asking enough, it's you don't value your services and your time and your expertise and your knowledge enough. Sticking point. So that's what I'm talking about when I say a sticking point, a thing that prevents you from moving forward in your business launch, or it prevents you from moving on, taking the next step in your business growing or expanding. So, I'm opening it up. If you got questions about a sticking point, if you have a specific sticking point, hit me up. And I can try to answer it on air. If I don't answer it on air, we'll absolutely do it on a podcast. And if it's really deep, then we can book out a sticking point meeting and we can sit down and talk about it. But I'm typing it now. So we're putting the banner at a sticking point. Ask in the comments. What other sticking points are there? So we talked about price. Um, sometimes sometimes you don't know, and sometimes knowledge can be a sticking point. You want to expand or grow into something new, but you don't have any experience with it. And so let's talk about how that sticking point manifests. All right. So you want to try something new. Maybe you want to try a new business. You want to try your hand at being a business owner. And so you read books, and you watch YouTube videos, and you buy ebooks, and you keep bombarding yourself with information and knowledge and stuff like that. But you never ever implement. So you're caught up in this trap of acquiring knowledge where you become a knowledge hoarder, where you know all the technical aspects of what you're trying to do. You understand them. You have a good grasp of them. You have your arms around them. You have an entire library, an Alexandria library worth of knowledge about a specific topic. Here's what the issue is, and here's what the problem is. You haven't executed it yet. And one of the problems is you keep acquiring new knowledge, and every bit of new knowledge shows you that you don't know as much as you thought you knew about this thing that you want to undertake. And now you've created your own sticking point because you feel like you don't know enough, and it's a spiral. I don't know enough. I need to get more knowledge. I get more knowledge. I realize I know even less than what I thought I did. I got to get more knowledge, and it becomes this perpetuating loop of constantly watching videos, reading books, looking at articles, and you never ever take the first step to implement your idea. You never take the first step to execute your idea. What you're doing is you're essentially lining the pockets of a lot of self-help gurus who they themselves have never really created a business outside of being self-help gurus. They don't have any working knowledge outside of creating YouTube videos, but you're taking their advice because learning is more comfortable than doing. It always is. Learning about something is way more comfortable than doing it. I started out college as a construction engineering major. Learning about construction engineering seemed a lot more comfortable than actually applying some of what I actually knew, because when you have to apply it, you open yourself up to criticism, and criticism is yucky and it makes you feel bad. So it's better to not go out and apply it. It feels better to constantly learn it. And that's where a lot of business owners create a sticking point from themselves. If you're looking to launch a new wing of your business, launch a new aspect of it, you can create a sticking point for yourself where you've trapped yourself on this treadmill of constantly getting new information. The way we address that sticking point is we come up with a plan to implement. You take one small step and execute it. Come and check back. Did you survive? Okay. Now let's take the next step and execute. Did you survive? Now do you have a little bit of money in your pocket? Okay. So now let's take the next step. And that's what we can help you out with. But learning can be a tremendous sticking point in and of itself. Here's one that isn't unique, but I've run into it. I've run into it with my own business, and I've talked to people that run into it. So you have a really specialized knowledge, and you got a ton of skills, and you've actually proven out what you know, and you realize that there is a market for what you're trying to do. All right. One of the things, and my mom used to say this, it was hiding your light under a blanket. So you have all these fantastic, wonderful ideas and they're transformative, and they're going to change people's lives, and people are going to pay a lot of money to have them. Or it's a service that nobody's ever done before. And you get so caught up in the idea that somebody is going to absolutely run behind you and steal your hard work and sprint off with it into the distance, that you never take the time to execute it because you're nervous that somebody's going to snatch it from you and steal it from you. One of the things you got to be cognizant of is, especially if you're in that mode of working and trying to build a business on the side, you have to be very careful when you're working for somebody else, when you're an employee of somebody else, and you're planning your business, because if they can prove that you were planning your business on company time, they can sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes they can enforce intellectual property rights upon you, especially if your idea is a hot one. If you don't have some kind of thing out there that shows that this is your intellectual property and your own work, something exists on the internet, something that you put in writing that you shared with other people, something that, where you, anything. It makes it really easy for them to say you came up with this intellectual property while collecting money from me, and they can slide in and steal it. I've seen it actually happen to somebody before. You never want to be in that position. And that comes from hiding your light under a blanket. It comes from you have this grand vision of this thing that's going to change the world. And you're so scared to release it because you think somebody's going to steal it, that you open the door for them to open the door for somebody else to come and steal it, if that makes sense. And so the sticking point in that regard, that specific sticking point is navigated by another execution. You need to go out and establish your rights to this knowledge, put it out there with your name on it under your brand that you've created, so that when somebody says, well, this is our intellectual property because you were doing it on company time. No, one, I wasn't doing it on company time. And two, I've already been doing this on my own time on the side for X amount of years. And here's time-stamped footage from my last presentation, which, precedes the time that you think that you're saying that I've came up with the idea on your time. So, but it's the concept that somebody's going to come steal my great ideas and run with them. Here's what it is, y'all. They can steal your ideas, but they can't steal you or your brain or how you function or your ability to execute or deliver. So they're really not your competition. If they can steal your ideas, but they can't implement, all they have are ideas. So stop feeling like you have to kind of hide it from other people. And I've actually run into this with business models that I've come up with where I'm like, oh, this is such a great idea. I hope nobody steals it. Well, the unfortunate side is that's the risk that you take, but you got to take the risk of putting your stamp to it and getting it out into the world so that they can't steal it from you. Because there's, throughout the course of your life, throughout the course of your day, you run through a million different things that could possibly happen to you, a million different minor situations that could happen to you on a day-to-day basis. It's very possible that somebody has the exact same idea that you do. This is a big world. And so if they beat you to the punch, that's fine. If they can't execute your idea the same way that you can execute it, then you're going to win, but you have to execute it first. So that's how you that's a sticking point that people get stuck with is, I got this great idea. I just don't want somebody to steal it from me. Okay. But you got to go out there and present it. You got to step out into the world and open yourself up to the criticism that comes along with being upfront in the world, and be fine with it. Because a lot of times the people that criticize you because they can't do it themselves. So they find flaws in your execution where they can't even execute what you're doing. That's a sticking point. Okay. Next sticking point I've seen. So you are delivering, you have your business set up, you're delivering products and services the way that you want to. You constantly find yourself sparring with your clients about different aspects of your service, different aspects of your delivery, people kind of picking apart, what you're offering. And a lot of times it comes from when you are marketing to the tire kicking kind of clients who are always looking for a better deal. Because one of the things that they'll do is they'll pick your business apart and figure out things that they think you aren't delivering on, so that they can go out and try to get a better deal from somebody else. And it's a constant cycle, because I feel that cheapness, the inner cheapness, when people constantly have to pick a service model apart because they're constantly looking for a better deal. I feel like if they're business owners themselves, sometimes that seeps into other aspects of their business and how they deliver things. That being said, the idea that you don't have the right clients for the service that you're offering. And it does kind of go into a pricing thing, but it also goes into how you've positioned your service. Are you positioning yourself as a discount service? Because if you position yourself as the cheapest option, those are the clients you can always expect. You know, Walmart doesn't have super high expectations for his customers walking in the door. They know that people come to Walmart for a perceived discount, for paying less. And so the customer experience in there, they don't really care about it. They don't really try to make you feel special walking in the door, as opposed to you go out to some of those places in Vegas, going to some of those shops in the casino, and they'll roll out the red carpet for you at some of these designer stores because they know that, if you make people feel a certain type of way, they're likely to depart with thousands of dollars on some trinkets. So they try to give you a 5-star experience walking in the door. Walmart don't care about that. They're positioned as the bargain bin. Dollar store don't care about what your customer experience is. So you have to look at how you positioned your business in your specific market. If you positioned it as, well, it's the cheapest option or it's the next cheapest option, you're going to constantly get the clients that come in looking for the cheapest option. And they're going to expect more from your cheapest option, if that makes sense. So they're going to overweight their expectations based on, and you're not getting enough. Like, to be quite honest with you, you're not getting paid enough for it, but their expectations are going to be up here. And so, but you don't have the money to make your service up here. You have your money to make the service down here because you're not asking enough, but you position yourself in that bargain spot. That's a real thing. And that's a death spiral for a lot of businesses, because when you say, I will deliver services cheaper than anybody else, you've made a value statement on what your service is. I'm sorry. You have. There's no advantage being the cheapest. Well, let's not say it like that. There's no advantage being the second cheapest. Being the cheapest, there is advantage because you can get volume of clients. They're not going to be high quality. Some of them may not even repeat. If they can find it cheaper somewhere else, they'll absolutely go. But you get a higher volume of people streaming in, but they're not the clients that you want on a day-to-day basis. They're the ones that get something, it works out perfectly fine, and they'll still return it just to get the money. And so that's not the place that you want to be as a business owner. But a lot of business owners have created a sticking point for themselves because just about the way that they market themselves on social media, where you talk about, well, we're cheaper than everybody else. Well, that's what you're going to get, the clients that are cheaper than everybody else. All right. So I'm still opening it up for questions. If you got any sticking points, go ahead and hit me up. You could either hit me up here or my email, which I'll scroll across the bottom, which is mail@isellwords.net. If you reach out that way, then we'll probably end up taking it on the show as opposed to doing it live here. So if you got a question, you can hit me up there. So anyway, the next sticking point that I've seen is your marketing, and that's a big one. Because there are multiple tiers to marketing services. There are multiple different ways that you can market a product or service. Okay. One of the things is, I think it gets into the information overload where you're like, okay, I'm a business owner. How do I market stuff? You go in, you take that to Google or YouTube, and you will get millions of videos. You will get millions of YouTube videos telling you how to market your business. You'll get millions of articles telling you how to market your business. And a lot of times, the very first thing is, the most important consideration is, what can you do? Or what do you feel comfortable doing? Do you feel comfortable blogging, writing? Are you more comfortable writing than you are talking to a camera? Those are considerations. Are you more comfortable just talking to a mic with no camera? That's a consideration. These are different lanes that you can pursue. Do you mind doing emails, 1, 2, 3, 4 times a week? Do you mind newsletters? These are considerations that you need to have in your mind. because marketing is a bottleneck. Sometimes you have a fantastic product or service, but you just haven't told people about it. You haven't effectively told or communicated to people what it is. We fell in that with I Sell Words. Because and it's one of the things I don't advise as a business owner. I Sell Words is kind of a testing ground for ideas. And so when we offer a service and we take money for a service, we see that service to the end. Um, but we always are willing to try new services and experiment with new services. Well, unfortunately, that opens up the door for us to overwhelm ourselves, and that gives us the need to actually step back and refocus on things from time to time. Um, I wouldn't advise having a business where you constantly test out every single idea that comes in. We don't even do that here, but I digress. Here's what I'm gonna say. Um, one of the things that is a bottleneck for a lot of businesses is they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know what channel to step on. And when I say channel, I'm talking about social media platform. Facebook's a channel, Instagram's a channel, YouTube's a channel, all the other Snapchat, TikTok, all of these are different social media channels with different norms, standards. Twitter is its own has its own methodology and own different way of approaching it. And their messages have to match what the platform is. That's one. Two, you have to serve people content the way that they will consume content. So if you got somebody that's a YouTube video watcher, you're going to have a hard time getting them to sit down and listen to an audio podcast. It's better to take that audio podcast, make it into a YouTube video, and put it on YouTube so that they can consume it while they're doing other things around the house and streaming YouTube. So your marketing can be a sticking point, but and unfortunately, it's a multi-tiered sticking point. We got to figure out: is it a skill level? Is it a comfort level? Is it a consistency level? So sometimes you may love writing, but you never have time to do it. Well, if you love writing and never have time to do it, it's very hard to write a blog for your business. You know, if you love being in front of the camera, but you rarely have time to edit videos, it makes it harder to make that your primary source of marketing yourself. The reality is there's so many different ways to get your business name out there. You need to find where your audience is. The way you navigate your sticking point is you got to clarify what you're offering to the audience, clarify what your service is or what your product is or what problem it solves for people. And then you got to figure out where your audience is. Those are the two things that you got to determine. If you have an older audience, the chances of them being on TikTok is slight. Unless you are, unless that's who you've cultivated on there to come. If you have a group of people that you've cultivated to follow your TikTok channel, then you can absolutely have an older audience and kind of buck the trend with demographics. But the reality is, an older audience isn't going to necessarily be on TikTok. And a lot of times the younger audience, you're not going to necessarily find them on Facebook. You might find them on Twitter, but in Twitter land, it's a different mentality in terms of what people are willing to accept and what they're not willing to accept from businesses. And Twitter can be a fast way to tank your business if your messaging isn't precise. You can really screw things up on Twitter. I've seen it happen. It happens multiple times a day where somebody's getting drugged down the timeline because they were imprecise with their messaging and something they said got completely misconstrued. And now you got Twitter detectives hunting down you and your family and running down all your familial connections. It happens on Twitter all the time. And so sometimes you got to figure out, is this the platform for me? Yeah, my people are here, but are they in a different mindset when they're on this platform versus the other one? It feels like, just from my experience, from a conversational standpoint, there's a little bit more room on Facebook to actually have lengthy conversations or in-depth conversations. Twitter is great for posting ideas and overall concepts. So it's, the bottleneck is figuring out, how do I deliver my marketing? What method do I want to use? Because you got to pick one. And that's the challenge of it for a business owner. You have to pick what you're going to do. Are you going to make videos? Are you going to write? Are you going to podcast? How are you going to do this thing? Because you can't just sit back and let your marketing happen to you. You have to actually put your message out there and control your own narrative. A lot of times, business owners get caught up in um, never getting control of their own narratives for their businesses, and the narratives end up writing themselves. Now, if you are a super big box business or you're in the industry where all you have to do is hang your shingle and people come to you, that's great. When you start leveling up and looking for more premium clients and more premium pricing, you have to really dial in what marketing you're using, because it's kind of like the concept of fishing. You need to make sure that you're using the right bait to bring in the right catch. Sometimes catching a fish isn't enough. You're looking for a specific type of fish, and they have a specific type of bait, and that's who you want. So your marketing can be a bottleneck. It's a multi-tier bottleneck, and it's not easily solved as a one-shot. It really isn't. It's difficult to solve it in one shot. And so if we were booking out an Unstuck session, we would have your sticking point meeting where we kind of determine what your marketing sticking points are. And then for your Unstuck meeting, we figure out what the biggest sticking point is, the one that we could move that allows other things to flow around it. And we remove that one. And then if we wanted to, we'd have subsequent meetings to address every single sticking point. But the concept behind the sticking point is we devote an inordinate amount of attention to one of the areas that you're struggling with in your business or marketing. And it's narrowly focused. A lot of times when you're dealing with consultants, they have a laundry list of issues that they need to address with your business. And they try to all address them at the same time. The difference between that and what we're offering with the sticking point meeting is singular focus, one topic at a time. Let's obliterate it and let's move on to the next. Sometimes obliterating that one thing can take months of hacking away at it. Sometimes it can be removed in the course of a day. But it could be the log jam that's preventing everything else from flowing around it. And so I think that singular focus of attention on one area instead of trying to address all your problems at one time, it gives you a little bit more speed, because sometimes some things aren't exactly a sticking point. They're just kind of a small point of friction that you can navigate through successful implementation. Okay. All right. So we talked about pricing. We talked about positioning. We talked about marketing. Let's talk about your service delivery and your follow-up, because that can be a sticking point in and of itself. When we're talking about service delivery and follow-up, one of the things that iSellWords was doing for a while was we would write ads for people and run ads on Google or Facebook. And we had good success at it. I had a couple of clients that would pay for ads and we would get a return, and if your ad is dialed in, you can make a pretty decent return based on the product you're selling. You can leverage where it allows you to, get multiples of what you put into the ads, So let's say you put $2,000 in ads, but it gives you $20,000 of business. Well, that's $2,000 well spent. And that's a situation that I've encountered with businesses that we worked with, where we get X amount to run ads, and we try to double or triple that. Now, there's some times where I can look in on the back end, and this is one of the things that was spooky about the model. I can look in on the back end and see, okay, we got these good qualified leads. People are clicking on the ads. It looks like they're taking an action and making a phone call based on that ad. And then all of a sudden, the business owner is like, well, this isn't working out. Well, you start pulling it apart and say, okay, what's your follow-up system? Are you calling them within a certain amount of time? Is your offer good once you get them? And unfortunately, a lot of times business owners don't have the time to work on the salesmanship piece because they're fulfilling, if that makes sense. So they're not really focusing on what the client experience is once the client is passed off to them. And I realized That's one of the biggest problems with the ad model, where people pay you to write and run ads. You're not there, unless you've taken the time. And that was probably one of the things that we could have done better to deliver services better, is coach them through. Okay, so now the clients are your door to the door. Let's come up with an implementation system, a follow up system, to make sure that the clients we pass forward with this money that the clients we generated from this money are actually taken care of once they get into your system. That was on me. That was a self-created bottleneck that I wasn't aware of or a self-created sticking point that I wasn't aware of until I finally got fed up and dropped the model and stopped offering the ad services. But hindsight's always 2020. When I'm talking about the implementation, I'm saying, what's the client's journey and experience once they reach out to you? How soon do you call them? And what is the experience? Do you have a bunch of hoops that they got to jump through? Are you doing a bridge too far kind of stuff once they get into your system? When I say a bridge too far, are you asking too much of them as a client? Or is it part of your strategy to get them to prove that there are good clients for you? Because there's some models where that actually does make sense, where you have to make sure that they're willing to be great clients for you. And so you do have an entire system to kind of qualify them. Other times it's, do your workers call them? Are your workers pleasant when they call them? Are they responsive to client questions? Those are the different things that need to be addressed in terms of when I'm talking about what the service delivery piece of it looks like. And sometimes there's a sticking point. Sometimes there isn't a great way to reach people. I know that one of my businesses has a mailbox that constantly gets hit, but it doesn't notify for whatever reason. And so I constantly have to go into that mailbox and see what new stuff's come out. And sometimes I don't have time to check it every couple of hours. It's like every day. Well, sometimes people expect you to respond within 24 hours. If that's the expectation within your business, and your people aren't, your worker, your salesperson isn't calling that lead back in 24 hours, that's a lead that you probably lost. Or a lead that you're going to have to put more effort in to pleasing, because the initial contact was not pleasant for them. And so those are the kind of things that can be a sticking point in terms of that. You're spending all these on ads, but the leads come in and you're not converting them. That's an internal problem. And it's something that can be addressed through how your staff engages with those leads when they come in. And unfortunately, sometimes for the business owner, that means for a while, you end up being the one that fields the calls, sets up the appointments so that your people can go out there and handle the business. But you end up becoming that point of contact, and until you can train somebody to do the same thing. So that's a sticking point in and of itself. Your delivery can be a sticking point. If we're talking about product delivery, there's another level to it. I was an Amazon seller for a while, and fortunately, I wasn't in the drop-in shipping model. The drop shipping model is where all you do is take all the orders and then pass the orders on to another party, and the other party manufactures, prints, whatever, and ships it to the client from there. A lot of times the drop shipping things are set up in other countries. And so you have to deal with, okay, I have this product that's actually in China or being made in Taiwan or somewhere else, is being made in India. And the person that's actually fulfilling the order and selling it, or it's filling the order and shipping it, is working on a different timetable than you are. So your timetable, the expectation you and may have is like, I want this delivered to the client in 7 business days. Well, for them, it may be 2 months before it may be 2 months from where they're shipping it before it gets to the client. And so I've seen a lot of online business models fall apart behind that piece of it, because they got an idea on a great product, but it takes too long to deliver and execute upon that. And since, or if something goes defective with the product, the return address is somewhere off in Bangladesh somewhere. And how did how do you return it there? Because all you're doing is returning it to a factory that sent it out. There is no person in the middle that acts as customer service. You're that person. And so they had to contact you to get a replacement. Well, if it takes 2 months to get the replacement in, you're going to have to deal with either refunding them their money, or you're going to be dealing with a very unhappy client for 2 to 3 months. So that's what we're talking about in terms of the service delivery. You got to make sure that that piece is not a limiting factor in your business. All right. We talked about price. We talked about service delivery, knowledge, acquiring knowledge, not wanting to publish, not wanting to share your work. So let's get into it. I think the next step is going to be the open pitch. If you're, we're going to be launching this officially next week. But if what I've been saying to you, if you're like, okay, I think I need to get unstuck. I think I'm stuck at a point and I don't even know where I'm stuck at. I know I just can't move forward. This is the time for you to reach out to us. And shoot us an email so we can send you an appointment link so that we can get your unstuck session, your sticking point meeting scheduled. First thing's the sticking point. The sticking point is to assess where your points of friction are. The next meeting is the unstuck meeting. This is officially, we've determined what your sticking points are. Now we're going to determine which one we're going to hit and how we're going to exactly remove it. And then we have a checkup meeting to make sure that everything, you understand all elements of what we discussed. Is kind of a follow-up meeting. And then finally, we have an implementation meeting. We check in a couple weeks afterwards to see how you've implemented the stuff from the sticking point meeting. And so this is all one session, but the way that we get started is a sticking point meeting. And we are offering those for $99. It's an hour-long meeting. We just sit down and kind of assess what your sticking point is. It's a great way so that even if you don't choose to move forward with the unstuck meetings, you at least have an idea of these are the areas that are preventing me from taking my idea to that next level. Whether you're just starting out with the business and you're just starting out with a concept and you're testing out your market and you're doing all the other stuff before your launch, or whether you've been doing it 10, 15 years and you've had this thing that's keeping you from moving to the next level. The sticking point meeting is great for that. The unstuck meeting is more of a direct implementation. Okay, we've assessed what the sticking points are. I think if we remove this one sticking point, we can get you unstuck. And so that's what the unstuck meeting is about. The unstuck meeting is narrowly focused on that one sticking point and trying to navigate our way around it so we can remove it so the rest of your business can flow on. And then the follow-up meetings are just us doing our due diligence to make sure that you understood the concepts we talked about in the unstuck meeting and to make sure that you're implementing what we discussed. Because if you're having trouble with the implementation meeting, we probably need to fall back and kind of figure out where you're stuck with the implementation of it. So that's what the unstuck process looks like. The reason why I feel like we are qualified to provide this service. Before I started marketing, my entire life was working with kids and families and sitting down and addressing what their issues are and putting together plans so they can be successful. And these plans had to be able to withstand the scrutiny of courts, lawyers, and other, be able to stand with scrutiny of judges and lawyers and other key stakeholders. And so these plans had to be rock solid and account for a lot of different moving parts. And I was not only doing that on the front end, but I was also training people on how to do it on the back end. And so a lot of coaching interpersonally goes into that consulting piece. And I've done it from the front lines all the way to the director level. And I feel like that's a unique skill set where we can coach people on how to move forward. Brandy's also done coaching, financial coaching with people, and help them address their issues from a financial standpoint and move forward. And so these are the two worlds that you're getting from us. The more family oriented, the more human oriented kind of thing, and an analytical side of things. That's what the Unstuck Sessions are. It gives you, you know, it addresses your issues from a human side and addresses your issues from a tactical side. And so when we do this, we're keeping the person in mind. We're keeping the business owner in mind. We know that you are a human being too, that has family and other obligations. So the reason why we limit the time with the Unstuck Sessions is so that we can prioritize your time, save your time, merely focus on one issue and get the most bang for your buck. And that's what it is. So if you're interested, go ahead and sign up below. If you got any questions, hit me up. I'm gonna be here for a few more minutes. If you got any sticking points that you want me to address right here, go ahead and type them into the comments right now. I'm looking for any sticking points, any point of friction that you're stuck on with your business, that you need help navigating around. I'm here for you. That's the reality, because I feel like my best value is helping other people. That's the way I make an impact in the world, is helping other people. It's not about me taking, it's about me kind of giving. And I want to be able to provide other business owners with a little bit more of this, some of the structure I wish I had before embarking on being a multiple business owner. And that's the other side. I also own two businesses, and we survived COVID. Our best year, one of my businesses, our best year was the COVID year, just because we were able to strategize and plan around what we needed to do to make things happen. And it gave us an advantage on a lot of people in our industry who didn't have that flexibility and didn't sit down and think logically about, how do I make the best of this situation that's coming up. So one of our biggest years up to that date was our COVID year. We've beaten that year multiple times since, but being able to come up with a clear-eyed plan that took into account our needs as business owners, and our needs for our family and stuff. It took into account all of that stuff. And we had pretty good success with it. And so that's kind of where that goes. So that's the Coach Mo Athletics. So you can see the shirt I have on now. That's that business model, where it's a basketball coaching and speed and agility coaching and training business that I co-own with my best friend. We were able to do some pretty amazing things in the COVID year. And we're looking for years of growth coming behind that. For I Sell Words was able to really be flexible during that COVID time and adjust to kind of the parameters in the new world. So I shifted a lot of my business model to, instead of going out and directly consulting people, doing this stuff virtually. And it helped out because, we have immunocompromised people in the family and in our circle and stuff, and it wasn't always beneficial for me to be out and about and then go be up in somebody else's face. And so being able to come up with a solid plan to address potential sticking points created by the environment, created by the world, allowed us to thrive and survive. But I had to narrow down and focus. And so that's where the impetus of the sticking point meeting comes into play, because I was doing one-off consultative meetings with clients. And the biggest complaint I had from an implementation standpoint for me was, it was too many topics a lot of times. We had too many different things to address, too many different barriers to navigate around. And I wish I would have come up with the idea of narrowly focusing on one topic and addressing that one topic during our meeting time, because I think it would have benefited some of the business owners I worked with more to address a single topic. And so that's what this is. All right. So if you have a sticking point, hit me up. If you want to schedule your sticking point meeting, I will shoot us an email and I will send you the link for it. Like I said, we're going to be officially launching. We got a couple more beta sticking points meetings. We're doing those just to work out the kinks in some of our service deliveries. But ideally, we're going to be able to launch this next week. If you're interested on an unstick a live stream about a product launch, hit me up. Let me know. Give me a like or leave something in the comments and say, yeah, I want a product launch video, because there's multiple steps to launching a new product or service. And so the step we're in right now is we're on the testing side of it. We know it works, but we're the testing side. The meetings are to nail down our implementation of it and to create some marketing materials for when we actually officially launch. And so that's the iteration that's the, so we can kind of iterate a little bit based on the information that we gather from the testing side of things. And so that's what we're doing right now. So hopefully next week I can announce that we've officially launched the Unstuck Sessions and have a landing page for you to go to sign up. So that's what I got, y'all. I really do appreciate y'all's time. I know a couple people popped in, left a like. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, I'm gonna keep doing this until the wheels fall off, man. Either y'all gonna pay attention or YouTube gonna cut me off. But it is one of those things where I do feel passionately about it. I do really, really want to help people out. And so last couple of weeks, I've been actually going online and finding marketing questions to ask myself to give people answers. I think I might do that for, to finish up our time. If you got any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments and I'll try to address them. If you got any sticking points that you're encountering, I'll see how I can address them online. If I can't address them online, I will absolutely read them on the podcast and address them there. The What's the Business podcast with Brian and Brandy. We interview business owners. And on days where we don't have business owners, we answer our marketing questions. And so you would go on one of those days where we're answering marketing questions. And I think I got another one scheduled here coming up, so I got to double check. Yeah. So the idea is what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift and talk about marketing questions from business owners online. And hopefully somebody can chime in if you got a business question or a marketing question, or you have a sticking point that you want to bring up, we can address it here. But let's see. What are the 7 principles of marketing? Okay. 7 principles of marketing is product. Your product has to solve a specific problem. Bottom line, it's got to solve a specific problem, or it's got to create something in somebody's life that doesn't exist, that didn't exist before. Price is everything. Your price is how people value your service. Being the cheapest option is not advisable. I would never advise somebody to be the cheapest discount option where they're at. Your price is relative to your positioning. You need to make sure that every unit sold, whether we're talking about units at time or I'm talking about units in terms of products, pay your bills, pay your overhead and stuff like that. So you have to make sure your price basically your cost of living is passed on to the cost of your existing is passed on to your client. So your price is very important. Plus it's a signal to say how much this product or service is worth. Placing. This is also kind of whether you're going to be placed, in my mind, this is how I'm looking at it, whether you're going to be where you're placing yourself in the market. And I have a different way of looking at it, but when I say placing, I'm looking at, because it can go down to location. It can absolutely go down to location, especially if you're doing a brick and mortar thing. What shelf is it on? What items is it near? And things like that. But when I'm also thinking about place, I'm thinking about relative place in the hierarchy. Is it a premium product? Is it a discount product? Whether you're selling it online, what platforms are you using to sell it online? Promotion. What are you doing to promote it? Are you using a strictly social media campaign? Do you have a website that you're driving to, email list, blah, 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 blah? Are all those things in place? And how are your clients finding you? People, who are you selling it to? What are their needs? What are their wants? What are their aspirations, hopes, dreams, wishes, all that other stuff? These things are considerations when you're creating a product or service. You need to know, you need to have an idea of who your clients are before they step in the door. Because that informs everything about your marketing. You gotta know who your clients are. Again, it does go into, are they premium clients? Are they discount clients? What are their expectations? Process. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about your follow through and your implementation. What is the client's journey? When they click on the website, what happens next? Think of it like that. When they come into the store and grab the item off the shelf, what happens next? What's their journey? You need to really think about what your client's journey and experience is. Lower end stores don't do it. You're starting to see a few more that actually do, where they actually care about it, because those are how you get repeat customers. If they have a pleasant experience doing business with you, they're likely to come back. If they have a negative experience, they may come back, but it may not be for the reasons that you want. And packaging. The packaging piece of it goes from a physical standpoint. So, is your packaging hard to open, like one of those old school, like the old hard plastic things that you can't get out, you can't get open with a blowtorch? I mean, your packaging is important. Is it easy to get into? Is it bulky? Is it oversized? If it's a nightmare to get into, I don't want to buy any more from you. If your packaging is not easy to get into, I don't want to buy any more from you. If your packaging doesn't actually protect the product, I'm not going to buy any more from you. Now, we can also talk about packaging in terms of how you're presenting it online. Product images, schematics that show exactly how to use the product, things along those lines. That all goes into the packaging piece of it, as far as I'm concerned. And so making sure that when the client gets it, you have clear instructions that tell how to use this for maximum benefit. And so that's how I would phrase those things. Other people may disagree. If you disagree, leave a comment. Like it twice if you disagree. All right. How do I market my business to get more customers? Determine where your customers are. That's important. That's where you start. Where are your customers? Where are your clients coming from? If you don't know where your clients are coming from, it's almost impossible to really do anything else. If you don't have a profile of who your clients are and why they choose you, it makes it very difficult to do other stuff. It's almost impossible. You have to know your clients. And a lot of businesses don't want to take the time to understand who their clients are, because they want to do that cop out and say, well, it's for everybody. Well, it's impossible for your product to be for everybody. It's impossible for everybody to need your same product. It's just impossible. So you really need to have a good idea of who your clients are and what their tastes are and things like that. You wouldn't, if you're opening up a meat market, you wouldn't specifically target vegans as your clients, as your sole clients. That wouldn't make any sense. You got to know what your clients' expectations are and what they're looking for. And you got to know where they are. When I say where they are, where do they congregate online? Where do you find a lot of them online or in the real world? And how can you get your message in front of them? These are considerations you need to be thinking about. Let's see. We're going to go through 12 tips to promote your business from Chase Bank. Let's see what Chase Bank's talking about. 12 tips to market your business. Take advantage of local listings. There's a lot of people that utilize the phone book. They still utilize it. And a lot of times people, if you get a business that's old enough, that's been around long enough, they have enough loyal clients and loyal customers that all they need is a phone book ad, because they've honed their audience to be people that still use home books. So, but there are businesses out there that, really take advantage of local things. If you have a business right now, I'm going to tell you this right now, because they're talking about local listings. I'm talking about your listings, local, regional, international, national, whatever. If you don't have control of your Google listing, you're leaving money on the table. And just be real. If you don't have control of your Google listing, you're leaving money on the table. Your Google listing gives you so much power. It gives you so much insight into who your clients are. So go to Google My Business, go to Google My Business and Google your business and see what it takes to take over your listing. Use social media. We talked about social media can be free. To get more bang for your buck, it may cost some money, but you can use social media and build up your audience and let that do the work for you. So yes, you can absolutely. And with social media, you do have to invest time into engaging your audience, answering their questions and things like that. So it does take a chunk of your time to moderate the community, but it really is super beneficial. I've seen people have create things where they have tremendous business success through social media, and then you put a little bit of money behind it, and it's a chef's kiss. So yeah, absolutely, social media is out there. Next one is create engaging content. Engaging content right now, video is king. I'll be honest with you. Photos work. They got to be strategically picked, but video is king. It's the most eye-stopping thing on media. And when I say eye-stopping means people are scrolling through and it's something that stops them in their tracks and makes them consume it. Video is kind of king, but if you can get good pictures of your products or services, they can stop eyes too. Asking questions of your audience, getting them to engage in a dialogue with you is very important. It's a powerful tool. It's a great way to leverage social media presence to make your clients feel like they're part of something bigger. Optimize your website's SEO. We had a whole SEO discussion on the podcast we recorded this week. If I can salvage any of the audio, like I said, StreamYard was acting a fool last week. But if I can salvage any of the audio from it, we'll have some SEO experts talking about what SEO can and cannot do. A lot of people are selling SEO packages based on what people think that it can do for them. And they haven't really set their website up to be successful and fully take advantage of whatever SEO offering is out there. SEO, for those that don't know, is search engine optimization, how your website appears on the search engines. The reality is, unless you are a one of one where nobody else is offering the kind of service that you're offering, the likelihood of you popping up as the number one entrant on your Google listings is kind of slim, unless you are really dialed in with some of your SEO practices or you're willing to pay to play. Press releases, constantly talking to the public, that is all beneficial. If you're constantly engaging with your audience, especially when you have a new product or service, and constantly engaging with their audience makes them feel like you value them. And it's important, that constant level of engagement. If you constantly engage with your audience, they will engage with you. Get involved in an online community. I'll do you one better. Start an online community centered around what your product or service is offering. You don't have to constantly sell in there, but you can create a community of people that would be interested in your product line or your service line. I've seen people start fitness communities around, the specific targeted demographic that they were trying to work towards, and then leverage that fitness community on Facebook to do some incredible things. And so, yes, you should absolutely start a community, get involved with the online community. High quality visuals. Yes. I've seen too many restaurants specifically. I saw one earlier today where they had one of their signature dishes and they didn't hire a food photographer or somebody who has some experience to take pictures of it. And so I saw the dish and I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. I can't exactly tell what it is. And I showed it to my wife and instantly she was turned off by it because the food wasn't framed the right way. It didn't look good. It might taste good, but it definitely didn't look good. And that's the benefit of hiring a professional to actually come out and take those images of your food. Or if you don't want to hire a professional, actually using a couple lighting, investing in some lighting and stuff like that to get a better shot of what you're presenting to the world. I'm not saying that you always have to hire a photographer to do certain things. You can do it yourself, but you got to invest the time and sweat equity into it. Pay for advertising. I talked about it. It's a most bang for your buck kind of thing. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get kind of congested. This allergy weather is bad. But paying for your advertising is a bang for your buck kind of thing. They're talking about TV ads. TV ads can be cheap, depending on when you buy them. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you can buy a TV ad at the end of something like a golf tournament or something, and it's not expensive because they're figuring it's a downtime and everybody's going to be leaving. And so the ads are cheaper. Radio ads can be cheap or expensive depending on what network you're using. And, the idea is you want to make sure that your messaging is rock solid before you start diving into TV and radio ads. Paid social media posts, you have a little bit more wiggle room because you're still paying money, but it's a little bit less, and it gives you a little bit more ways to test out different messaging with different images and different wording and stuff. And so you can absolutely do that. Pay-per-click ads, basically it's every time somebody clicks on an ad, there's a budget that the social media account draws from. So you say, I'm putting a budget of $30 a day for this ad. Every time somebody clicks on the ad, it draws something out of that $30, and you're paying per click. Participate in local and community events. Networking is huge for small businesses. It never hurts to get in contact with more business owners because they can give you feedback that other people can't. I'm be honest with you. A lot of people who don't have businesses have a lot of advice for running a business, and sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. It's always a benefit to actually go out and listen to some people that are in the trenches along with you and that can give you good information. All right. So, Unstuck Sessions. I got about 5 minutes before I need to hit the door. So if you have any sticking point that you're stuck with on your business, and it's a sticking point is a small point of friction that's keeping you from moving to the next part of what you need to do with your business, go ahead and shoot me an email or drop me a comment, and I'll try to answer it on the show. I'll try to answer it on the podcast. Or if you need something a little bit more in depth, we can absolutely schedule a sticking point meeting and just set aside an hour to kind of assess what your sticking points are and figure out what things are preventing you from moving to the next level. So that's what I got here, y'all. I appreciate everybody's time, people that are watching. I really value your input on things. I'm happy that I have the ability to come on here and talk to people about stuff that I'm passionate about. A lot of people live their entire life and never take the opportunity to talk about things that matter to them. And so I like to use it on social media platforms where sometimes people are just talking about frivolous stuff or things that don't really matter to them. I'm grateful for the opportunity to jump on here and be able to talk about things that I'm actually passionate about. Those that know me know I'm actually a marketing nerd. I read marketing books in my downtime. I listen to videos about marketing to relax. And so this stuff matters to me. And so if I can pass on a fraction of what I know to you and give you, and you can have good success with it, that fulfills my mission, and that makes me happy. So that's all I got. I appreciate y'all's time. If you're looking to book an Unstuck session or a sticking point meeting, you can reach us at mail@isellwords.net. We're going to be officially launching the Unstuck Sessions next week, hopefully, fingers crossed. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.